And here we are. And you're listening to Dave Depew on Dave Depew's YouTube. This is Thirsty Thursday with Dave Depew and
Vaki Nikotopoulos, your bartender.
our bartender. The most important part of this segment is the bartender. You can't have a show without the bartender. Itai's not here today. If you've been watching, you know who Itai is. He's busy today with some family stuff. He's got family in from out of town, and so he's busy with that. Hopefully he'll be back joining us next week.
He's just going to have to remain thirsty this week.
Exactly. Remain thirsty. Exactly. All right, so let's dive into our drink. So what are we doing today?
All right, Dave. Today we're going to do a martini, a very, very classic cocktail, and also one I think about which there are many misconceptions.
Okay.
For example, why don't you tell me anything you know about the martini, Dave?
Well, I know the James Bond, likes to order his martinis shaken, not stirred.
Awesome. Yes, very good. So, one popular culture thing about martinis is that they remember James Bond likes them shaken. Okay. Do you remember what alcohol he likes the martini with?
I don't know. I'm gonna guess that it's gin.
So the classic recipe is gin, but
Okay.
he usually gets a vodka martini, to my understanding.
Okay. And I just looked at what was on the table, and I was
you
like,
cheated.
okay.
Yeah, I should have hid it from you. We got a cheater over here.
Gin or not gin? I was like, what do I go with here?
Yeah. So a lot of people think that the standard recipe for a martini is using vodka, but it's actually a gin drink. They also think the classic martini has 3 ingredients. One is gin right here, one is dry vermouth, and one is orange bitters. We're gonna have a modern one also with this grapefruit bitters, but I'll get there. And most people think that the drier a martini is, the better. Now, for a martini in standard colloquial speak, dryness corresponds to less vermouth. So if you put less vermouth, it's considered a drier martini. And most people put a lot of gin, a teeny weeny bit of vermouth, and a teeny weeny bit of orange bitters.
Okay. Give our audience a recap a little bit on just the basics. So what is gin? What is vermouth? What is bitters?
Sure. So gin is a grain alcohol that is distilled with botanicals. In particular, juniper is a good example of juniper berries. And basically, those botanicals and herbs, that's what separates gin from vodka. Vodka is just the grain alcohol. It has very little, if any, taste or smell. But gin has the flavor imparted to it by those botanicals.
Okay, cool. And the vermouth?
Vermouth is a fortified wine. So
Okay.
you should basically just think of it as a kind of funny wine.
And could you, is it still a martini if you were to, say, substitute that with another wine?
It's incredible that you would ask that question, because actually that leads perfectly into the history of the martini. So there's a very similar cocktail called the Martinez
Okay.
that is made with not dry vermouth, but sweet vermouth.
Okay.
So this is kind of hard to see in the green bottle, but this kind of looks like white wine.
Okay.
The sweet vermouth kind of looks like red wine.
Gotcha.
And the Martinez is the same ingredients, except also a little bit of cherry liqueur, Luxardo, which we've had here for the last word. I brought that here before. The Martinez, I will actually make another time. But these cocktails are intertwined historically. There's some debate about which came first. I think last I heard, the consensus might be that the Martinez was invented first, and it was invented in the mid-1800s gold rush in California.
Interesting.
And it was said that a gold miner was done mining for the day and wanted to celebrate his good fortune because he got some gold, and he went to a bar in Martinez, California. This is a city, and it's what the Martinez cocktail is named after. And he ordered something, I don't remember what the story is, and the bartender was out of that thing, and the guy was just like, I want a yummy cocktail, make me whatever you have. So the bartender kind of willy-nilly combined just whatever he had, and the Martinez was born. It turned out really good. And then at some point, there were some substitutions, and the Martini was born. That's one version of the story. There are some other versions. It's not totally sure what actually happened, but either the Martini came first from a Gold Rush thing, or the Martinez came first from a Gold Rush thing. Either way, definitely named after the city Martinez, California.
Cool. Wow, that's cool. Well, our next thing is our bitters. So what exactly is bitters? What is it made from? And is it bitter? Is that what the
Yeah, so bitters bitters can be made out of like basically anything, but it's a very concentrated flavor. Slightly alcoholic, usually not hugely alcoholic, like what is it, 35% or something? Oh no, this is 45%. So they can be. I think the lowest I've seen is probably like 20% up to like 50% alcohol. But it often has a very concentrated, very bitter flavor from other things. So today the two that we have is an orange bitters, which has a concentrated bitter orange flavor, and the grapefruit bitters, which has a concentrated bitter grapefruit flavor.
Yeah, and grapefruit is definitely one of those fruits that I would think of as with a bitter taste.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially like for orange, you might not think of oranges as bitter, but like the rind of an orange is bitter.
Right.
Orange oil is bitter, so this has
Right.
a lot of that orange oil bitterness.
Right.
But yeah,
And it
both
should
yeah,
keep the termites away too.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Right around the gym.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm gonna actually make us basically two drinks. The first one will just have a classic martini recipe, and then I'll make another one with the grapefruit bitters to see if that adds anything that we.
And these will be shaken, not stirred.
Yes, I forgot to address the shaken not stirred. I try to keep it out of my mind as much as possible. I think I've said this before on one of the Thirsty Thursdays, but in general, when you have a cocktail recipe in front of you, the general rule is that if you have citrus, an egg white, or any part of an egg, or dairy, that you're going to need to shake that cocktail. And otherwise, if it's just mostly composed from pure spirits, it's going to be stirred over ice. The shaking is for extra dilution and for aeration of the cocktail.
Gotcha.
I think there are probably two reasons that I would say it is bad to shake a martini. One of them I might be able to be talked out of because it's kind of a personal preference thing. I and probably many others think that shaking a martini will dilute it too much and it will destroy the flavor profile. So that's maybe a personal preference thing that I can be talked out of. But the shaking really aerates it, which I think just leads always, especially for spirit-forward gin drinks, aerating the gin does not do good things for the drink. It just makes the texture wrong, and it makes the flavor kind of off.
So what kind of describe what exactly is that off flavor? Like how would you describe it?
I think it diminishes like this is what it does. It diminishes the botanical flavors. So gin has this nice kind of subtle herby botanically flavor, and when you aerate it and dilute it more, you kind of lose that. And so what you get is just maybe just the burn, and no nice botanical notes.
Yeah. So if you don't have a very sophisticated palate, then you probably don't mind.
It's possible.
So what we're thinking is maybe James Bond just didn't have quite the sophisticated palate that he alluded to.
I actually think I heard at some point that he likes his drinks to be large volume. Apparently, that's how it started. That's how he started ordering them shaken. And also, I think in one of the movies or two of the movies or something, he gives specific measurements, and the measurements, like the volume of the cocktail that he orders, is huge. So he gets this, I don't know if they actually serve it in the movie, but if you go by what he says, you basically get this giant martini that is further diluted, so you have even more water on top of it. So I think he just likes to sip his drink for a long time.
Interesting. Cool. All right, let's get to drinking.
All right, let's do it.
So what is our measurements here? Like what are we?
So I think the original recipe was probably equal parts vermouth and gin. The kind of classic cocktail recipe is 2 parts gin, 1 part vermouth. So what I'm going to do is pour us 1 shot of vermouth for both of us.
So the interesting thing with this drink too is that what I'm picking up is every one of these actually has alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is one of those quintessential situations where stirring is important. Spirit forward. It's composed literally only of spirits. So that's our first shot of gin.
I like.
Yes, yeah, I think you will like.
Yep.
That's our first shot of gin. That is
I
our
don't need
second shot
to
of gin.
dilute this with water. No. Is there ice with this?
Yeah, it'll be stirred over ice,
Okay.
and that does dilute, but
A little bit,
it's
yeah.
just not quite as much. Okay, and then
And this is something you use very sparingly, correct?
yeah, so these are so this grapefruit, as you can see, is in a
Has
dropper bottle.
dropples,
So
yeah.
you literally do it in drops. That's pretty helpful to have for bitters. But the standard thing to have on bitters is the this little dashing top, so that you can just dash in small
Like
quantities
the
like that.
same way I like to do my Louisiana hot sauce.
There you go. Very good.
Yeah, yeah,
Tabasco. That's my neck of the woods. All right, now I'm going to work our ice out of this and get a stirring. All right.
Remind our viewers that we are in a gym. We're at Grinder Gym. That's why you hear all the clanging and the banging in the background. Turn the music off. That's about all that we get. And a massage tool in the background.
It's ambiance.
Yes, it is. He's like, should I turn this off?
Nah. Keep it on just that
That's
much
cool.
longer. A little more.
We're not that formal around here. If you can't handle it, then you're probably not gonna want to watch this show.
Absolutely.
There's no editing going on here.
Nope. All right, I'm going to strain it into our glasses.
How'd Deadlifts go?
That's super easy.
Good.
I wound up doing a 230 for 3 for 2. And because it was so, like, it went fast.
It's not following program. Yeah, you went wider.
Oh, I dropped my ass one. So it's like more explicit now.
Cool. All right.
All right. Cheers, my friend.
Cheers. Now, how do we drink this one?
This one is sipped.
Sips.
What you think?
It's heavy on something.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what it is.
Yeah, what kind of... Actually, you know what you can do? You can smell the ingredients and see if you can identify what it's heavy in.
Hey. It's the gin, I think.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too. Yes.
It's the, what did you call it? What was the
Gin
fragrance?
forward,
Gin forward.
and it's the botanical. It's a juniper. Is probably the thing that you most get.
Yeah, it's very earthy, or like, it just kind of reminds me of like lawn clippings.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Sure, it's that's exactly right. Botanical, grassy, earthy, citrusy, bitter berry sort of thing. Nice. I definitely think that in this drink, the main job of these two guys are to complement the gin flavor.
Interesting. Not sure I'm a martini guy.
To be completely honest, I don't like martinis very much. I thought it was an important drink to do, especially since people think that they're supposed to be shaken. Very sad.
Yeah.
But I will say, this is just hyping up a future episode. The Martinez is a way better cocktail,
Okay.
in my opinion.
And again, what was the difference between the Martinez and the martini?
Awesome. So instead of dry vermouth, we use sweet vermouth. And then there's also the addition of a small amount of cherry liqueur, this Luxardo. maraschino liqueur.
Yeah, that's sounding better already. Yeah, a little sweet, little sweet.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's
I wonder how Itai would, if he would enjoy this more than the sweeter one.
yeah.
We'll never know because he's not here.
It's
So.
true. I think it remains to be seen whether he will reject the Martinez. I think that's the deal. I think it's the. I'm beginning to understand Itai's preferences a little better.
Okay.
I actually don't think it's just sweetness
Okay.
categorically that he doesn't like. I think it's a kind of sweetness, and
Yeah.
the Martinez is a kind of sweetness that I think he will approve of. So
Okay.
I would bet that he would enjoy it.
Interesting.
Also, this I think a flavor that that applies to the Martini, the classic recipe, is maybe the word savory. Like it's a very kind of dry savory cocktail.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely dry.
it feels like it's missing.
I
For
took-
me, it feels like it's
I
missing.
took a slightly smaller amount that time.
Oh, yeah?
I don't want to call it sip. I guess I'm terrible.
It's a sip. Yeah, yeah.
I don't sip.
You
well.
are apparently physically incapable of.
Yeah, I
sipping, but
think
you
I'm
did your
physically
best
incapable
here,
of it, but I made a valid attempt, and I will attempt throughout this drink. I will try to have just a tiny little amount and see if I can sip it, because that did make it a little more enjoyable. Not
Yeah, and you get the
having
orange. Like I think
a
you
lot
get
of
the
it at one
orange
time.
more easily if you take a smaller sip and let it kind of evolve.
Yeah, that wasn't bad.
Sweet.
Yeah, so I need to learn to sip.
That's
certain
that's a good
drinks.
takeaway from the Martini. Actually.
Yeah, certain drinks. Maybe the Martini will help me learn to sip.
True.
Yeah, I'm really bad about, like, that is one thing. Like when I was younger and would drink, or I mean, anytime I drink, I would just pound them back. Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of that had to do with like how I would drink. Like, you know,
The context in which you would drink.
sure. Well, we would go to the club, you know, and I liked to be on the dance floor. I didn't like to be standing around
you said that.
sipping, you know. So I just hit the dance floor, have a good time, come off, pound a drink, go back to the dance floor.
Yeah,
You know, that
and-
was kind of my routine. I didn't stand around much.
Yeah, and like my first drinking experiences, like really young, I don't know, like 11 or something, were like at get-togethers with my parents and their friends, and so those were always kind of long, you know, seated talking affairs.
Yep.
So it was I started out sipping, and
Yeah.
then you know.
That's probably why I just didn't do a lot of like mixed drinks. I didn't, you know, really get into wine. You know, it was basically
Yeah, people don't shoot wine.
beer and shots. Beer and shots. That's it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, beer during the game, and then shots on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Yep, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Cool. Awesome. What else can you tell us about this drink? Anything of importance, or anything that this drink, like, you can segue from this drink like you did with the Martines as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think maybe a little conversation about vermouth might be warranted. Vermouth is an ingredient in a lot of drinks. Actually, many of the drinks that I love that have vermouth have sweet vermouth. And there's kind of that savory flavor that we're talking about, the dryness, that comes from the dry vermouth, hence the term dry. But I think the sweet vermouth, at least the ones that I like, have a little bit of like nuttiness that they impart as well, which I think is really pleasant. And a really famous drink that is actually abstractly in recipe is really like the Martini is a Manhattan.
Okay.
And the Manhattan is whiskey, usually bourbon.
Okay.
Bourbon or rye, it depends. Sweet vermouth and bitters.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the Manhattan. We'll probably do that one at some point as well.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah,
we should.
yeah, especially
Well, I don't
since
want to
we're
ask you
bourbon.
too many questions about that, because then we won't have
For
as
sure, yeah,
much to
I
talk
will
about
tell you
in the next
nothing more
segment.
than that. But suffice to say, vermouth is an ingredient in a
Yeah.
lot of cocktails. Oh, maybe some vermouth education is also relevant. So, if you go to any old bar,
Mm-hmm.
it is frequently the case that their vermouth will be spoiled, like behind the bar.
Right.
So vermouth, as I said, is a kind of wine. It's a fortified wine, and as such, like if you open a bottle of wine and just keep it around your house, it goes bad after a while.
Sure.
So 2 things that you can do, like if you buy your own vermouth, keep it in the fridge always. That helps it last. Instead of lasting like a couple of weeks, it can last like 2-3 months in the fridge before it turns like sour and yucky. But at like a not super nice bar, they might have had that vermouth, like, you know, who knows how many people are ordering stuff with vermouth. It might have been sitting there for months and months and months and months. And so you might have had one of these drinks and thought that it was just disgusting and you hated it. That might have been because the vermouth was spoiled.
bad. Yeah.
So, you know.
And there's no real way of knowing. Or could you taste the vermouth and
you can.
you know, ask to taste
the
it?
foolproof way is to just say, could I have, like, I don't know, maybe you can be smart about it and even just order just a little shot of vermouth at the beginning. Pretend like you want to do an aperitif or something. You're really inspecting the vermouth. But I have a trick that I do if I'm not sure. At a fancy bar, they usually will open new bottles of vermouth every night. At a fancy bar, you don't have to worry about it as much. If you're unsure, you can always ask, oh, can I see which vermouth you have? And they'll hold up the bottle usually, and you can see if it's like full or if it's almost to the bottom. If it's like halfway or lower, then maybe I suspect that it's been open for a while, and maybe I shy away from it.
Yeah.
But you can always ask, when did you open it? Most of the time, they'll know what you're getting at, and they won't be offended. They'll be like, if they know you've got a palate that'll detect it, hence you're asking the question, they'll be real with you.
Yeah.
They'll be like, yeah, okay, this is all this fruit. We should order something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's just a good bartender. You know, someone that's like, you know, working as much for the patron as they are for the bar.
For sure, they want to you know, make the patrons happy.
Yeah, that's good. Very cool. So, where would you probably expect to see, like, what? Given an example of like a particular bar type that you, I mean, I know it's kind of, you're not gonna know for sure like where you would see it, where you wouldn't see it, but you know, like if we're thinking like you know, your typical dive bar, you know, it serves a lot of beer. This is probably not going to be a drink that they would have, or is that a good assumption?
I think basically every bar that has more than just beer should have martini ingredients. However, I would never order something with vermouth as an ingredient at a dive bar. I would always stick to other cocktails with less delicate ingredients or whatever, because I would always expect that vermouth would be spoiled. I would be very surprised if I encountered a dive bar where they always made sure that their vermouth was, you know, fresh.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of my policy.
Yeah.
I have a bar that I really like in Carlsbad called Campfire. It's a bar restaurant, but they're an example where, you know, when I moved here, I wanted a nice bar to go to that had stuff that I liked and bartenders that I trusted. And I did a bunch of research and I found this place, and I've been very happy with it for the most part. But they open vermouth every night, fresh.
Yeah.
So you can order whatever you want there. You won't get spoiled stuff.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Cool. Oh, very cool. Awesome. Well, can't say that it's you know, one of my favorite drinks.
That's all right. You got to build that experience so that you
we're-
know what you like and what you don't.
We're done with our time here, and I haven't even made it through the drink, so I could shoot it for sure, but yeah, I'm not a huge fan, but I am a fan of our time, so
Sure, yeah.
I'm glad that we had this time together, and for those of you that don't know, we have a great deal of conversation that goes on after the show, and that's something that we look forward to as well too. So I'm bummed that I don't have Itai here this week, but you and I, I'm sure we'll have some great conversation
Oh, yeah,
afterwards.
absolutely.
We got a lot to catch up on.
For sure.
This young man is getting married soon. That's right. So he's been really busy. We got a lot going on with that. So I can't
Yeah,
wait to hear. Can't wait to hear what's developing with that, and yeah. So
Yeah, I can't wait to tell you.
yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. What do we say here? We say remain
Remain thirsty,
thirsty.
everyone.
Remain thirsty. All right.